I'm Matt Gishard, and this is No Holds Barred. In today's episode, I'm going to talk about defamation, and in particular, libel and slander. They're both parts of the law of defamation. But in particular, I want to talk about a case entitled Dominion versus Fox News. Dominion versus Fox News was a defamation action. Let's talk a little, what is defamation? You think about it, well, somebody defames somebody, they say something. People are more comfortable with the terms libel and slander. So libel, you think of somebody writing something, and in today's world, we see it online, on emails, people posting in Yelp, libelous statements, or slander. Slander are oral statements. Somebody gets on the news and says something, or they broadcast something. So libel and slander. And we look at them and the definitions of what libel and slander, you can all look them up. They're frequently confused, libel and slander, but it's not really important because they fall under the umbrella of defamation. And what really is defamation? Defamation, in its truest term, is making an untrue statement, publishing it, meaning either publishing it can be just stating it to another third party, and doing it with malice. You're doing it to hurt somebody. And as we know from the Dominion case, untrue statements were made. And why do we know that? And it doesn't depend on what political divide you are on. It is that the judge made a ruling, and I don't think the press did a particularly good job of telling us what, but there was what was called a motion for summary judgment by Dominion. And those are often brought before trials to have the court decide certain legal issues prior to the trial. It makes the trial less complicated. In this case, Dominion said, we have sufficient evidence to show that Fox News made false statements, and Fox News published them. Now, of course, we know published them and they put them on the news. They talked about them, so they stated them, so that it wasn't just, it's not defamation if you say to your friend, you're a jerk and a liar and a cheat. That's between the two of you. But if you say that same thing to a third party, it's published. So it's not just writing it or putting it in a newspaper. But in the Fox News case, and we're hearing all the talking news people and all the talking heads waxing eloquent about what it means, and half of what they say is not true. The matter of the fact is that summary judgment was granted, and the only real issue at trial was whether or not it was done with malice, that third prong, because the judge had already ruled that Dominion got to get in that they were false statements and that they were published. I think people were surprised, and people often are surprised in cases such as that Dominion settled. But I kind of have to chuckle and say, the fact is 99.9% of all civil cases settle. So it was not unusual at all that Dominion settled for $787 million. Reading the Wall Street Journal and various things ahead of time, that Dominion was worth somewhere in the neighborhood of 80 million, not billion, 80 million. And interesting also to read about the investment company that bought a stake, a majority stake, for something in the neighborhood of 36 million. So when you kind of think about that somebody invested and got a majority stake in a company for 36 million, So the company was probably worth somewhere south of $100 million. And they settled for $787 million, almost $1 billion. And interestingly enough, they gave up their claim for lost earnings. So what really, that's kind of difficult to do, to prove lost earnings. So it was a total win for Dominion, no matter, as I say, what side of the political divide you're on. Dominion, a company worth less than $100 million, is now worth over $700 million. And the fact is, they only had to prove malice. I think what we saw from the news was that malice was going to be pretty easy to prove when you consider what many of the Fox News people had said in private, and it came out in depositions and all. They were saying, we're only interested in our audience. We know it's untrue, but we're going to say it anyway. And the inference of malice, that they're doing it for a purpose that is not honest and to hurt. Now they're going to say, or they were trying to say, that no, we're just saying what other people have said, and we're just reporting the news. However, their statements in private give lie to that, and they knew that it was untruthful. But nevertheless, the judge already had ruled on that issue. Malice, the important issue. In today's world, our firm often gets people coming to us and saying, we sold a business, and the people went on Yelp and said the most horrific things about us. And that's written, so we call it libel or slander, whichever way it comes. And it was done with a malicious purpose to hurt us. And we think we have a pretty strong case. So that the world now is just covered with libel and slander cases. And the important thing is, what essentially is your loss? What are your damages? So there's something called slander per se. And slander per se is if you accuse somebody of a crime, or being a sexual predator, or doing something such as that as a lawbreaker. That's called slander per se, and you don't even have to prove damages. But in most cases, you have to prove damages. So let's talk about a case like that. We had a case in which a real estate agent participated in the sale of a home. And the people that purchased the home, and it wasn't even their agent, it was the agent for the buyer. People who purchased the home, don't know why, started publishing all over email, Yelp and everything, how this real estate agent was so dishonest. And frankly, we looked at the case and could see nothing. They got their house, they got it for the price, they got everything that they wanted, and no reason why they did that. As it turns out, they had a friend who was in competition with that agent, and they on their own decided that they would publish an untrue statement or untrue statements. So we've got the two prongs. They were untrue and they were published, and they did it for a malicious purpose. They did it to injure them. That was the fact, and that came out. They did it to help their own agent in that territory, and they did it to hurt this agent. So, and they accused them of dishonesty, so it was slander per se. One of the difficult parts of the case, however, even though we had slander per se, was proving damages. Could our client show that he lost business as a result of this? So we felt we had a pretty strong case, but we wanted to show, what are your damages? What deals did you lose? And you can think about that. Very difficult, isn't it? So, well, I don't know what I lost. I continued to do business. The vagaries of the market, the up and downs, I can't really tell you that I lost business or not. So it was difficult to calculate. So that's one of the things that we talk about defamation cases. How do we calculate that? So let's go back to Dominion versus Fox News. The claim for Dominion was that, wait a minute, we think of all the states that could have or did use our machines, but it was shown on Fox News that our machines were somehow in error. They actually cheated. There was something about our machines. Well, we learned, of course, that that was false. But how many states said, well, we're not going to use those Dominion machines anymore. We're going to go use those Smarttronics or whatever. Interestingly, another company that has those kinds of machines, and they too have a lawsuit against Fox News for, guess what? Defamation. And we'll see how that goes, and we'll see whether or not they do say, we're going to claim lost profits as well. And how they are going to do that, not sure. But I think it's interesting, and stay tuned to see how this issue of defamation, making false statements against somebody, publishing it for malicious purpose, how that's going to play out in our society with all the social media, all the emails, all the ability to publish statements about people or companies, and how that's going to affect our economy. I predict that the Dominion versus Fox News case is going to be a very big case for people to pause and reflect. I don't think I'm going to say that. As I tell people, if you think it, you can think it. Just don't hit the send button, because that's where you get in trouble. If you enjoyed this episode of No Holds Barred, please hit the like and subscribe buttons. And again, that helps with our YouTube algorithm. And again, very important, if you have comments or you have questions, please note them below. We look forward to hearing from you.